Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
In the first story, we will tell you how karma works perfectly and comes at a time when it was not expected, but most of all needed it. 10 years ago, I decided to open my own business. At that time, I was working as a night watchman in the local shop, but I was not satisfied with that. My salary was small, barely enough to pay for room and board. After my shift, one day I saw a program on TV where a businessman was telling me how he had managed to build up his capital with practically nothing. I thought, why not try it myself? I gathered all the necessary documents. I went to the bank to ask for a loan to start my own business. On my first attempt, I failed, but I didn't give up and went to the second bank, hoping that they would grant my request. After a short conversation with the lender, he still gave me the necessary amount, and I, satisfied with the first step successfully completed, went ahead. After a couple of weeks, I was able to open my own music CD store. I chose a building closer to the center. There was also a living quarter on the second floor. Without thinking twice, I went to live there. I didn't have a lot of stuff, and it didn't take long to move. I liked this situation, my business, and close to work. Of course, I gave up my job as a watchman and gave myself up to the new business, but it was difficult for me to do everything together, so I put up advertisements that a salesman was needed here. I didn't have to wait long. The next day, a young girl came up to me and honestly told me that she had no experience in trading. She asked for a trial period as she really needed a job. Tiffany, as she introduced herself, told me that she had worked as a waitress before. She was just over 18 years old and had left her foster parents, who had always treated her rudely. I felt sorry for her, so I agreed to take her on. It turned out that she was a very quick learner, and very soon she was successful in her sales position, and I also let her do the bookkeeping. After a while, I noticed that Tiffany was sad. I invited her over for coffee after work and asked her what was bothering her. She didn't want to involve me in her problems at first, but I was persistent, and she told me that the rent on the apartment she was renting had gone up a lot and she was having trouble paying further rent, and she hadn't found an inexpensive place to live yet. I felt genuinely sorry for her and offered to let her stay with me. There was only one bed, but I put a cot and made room on it, giving up space on the girl's bed. A few months later, my business success began to rise. With Tiffany, our working relationship quietly turned into an intimate one. We were very compatible, and a year later, we decided to get married. Tiffany loved music, especially playing guitar. At some point, she decided she wanted to learn it herself. When she bought an instrument, she took guitar lessons in her spare time, which she saw advertised on the wall of our store. As the years passed, my life with Tiffany became quite ordinary and settled. We were able to buy ourselves a beautiful home where we could enjoy moments of peace and happiness. Meanwhile, I continued to grow my business, and the music CD store was making a good profit. Tiffany also continued to excel in her musical talent. She began to play so well that she decided to perform occasionally at a club near us. It was an opportunity for her to show her art to a wider audience and get feedback. One day, during one of her performances, a tall man in his 30s came up to her. He had deep blue eyes and a smile that seemed genuine. He listened to her performance and then, filling his voice with respect, said, "Hello, I really enjoyed your performance. You have just the talent." "Thank you, but I don't sign autographs." "Oh, no. I'm not looking for an autograph. My name is Craig. The thing is, I have my own band, but our guitarist is about to leave and I'm looking for talent. And your playing has really impressed me. I'd like to invite you to join us. What do you say?" "I don't even know. I'll have to think about it." Craig left her a card and told her not to think too much. When she got home that evening, she shared with me that she had been asked to perform in a band. "And what did you say?" "So far, nothing, but he looked trusting. Maybe should give it a try." "I don't know. Usually you end up in groups like this with debauchery and drugs. You know that. I wouldn't want you to end up in bad company." "Come on, Jake. I don't see why not. Especially since there's another salesman in the store now, I have a chance to play more than just the club. I could become famous." I didn't want to let her in, but she asked so, and she always put up with my wishes. I promised her that I would try to find out what this company breathed first and then make a decision. At this time, I had already made some useful acquaintances, and I managed to get some information. The band and the lead singer who offered Tiffany's participation in their band were a regular musical group who had been playing various gigs in town for over 2 years and had already released their first album. I had no knowledge of any illegal activities with them, so I was free to let my wife perform with them. Jake, you have no idea how great it is. I feel like a star. Craig suggested I not only play but perform songs. I tried it and he said my voice sounded amazing. She shared it with me a few months later. I'm very happy for you, Tiffany. But don't forget what you promised. If there are any drugs, you leave right away. I was a fierce opponent of drug use. My older brother was once in bad company and his life went downhill because of drugs. After a while, he died of an overdose. And I was very afraid the same thing would happen to my wife. Tiffany assured me everything was fine and nothing like that was being offered to her. I sometimes went to her shows, not only to hear her perform, but to make sure their company didn't look like junkies. So far, things were going well. I was comfortable with her, but I didn't like the fact that Craig started visiting our house under the pretext of a professional visit to Tiffany's. He came sometimes even when I wasn't home. I don't want him here. This is our home, and I won't tolerate any intruders in my absence. You're so possessive. He doesn't do anything. He just came by to drop off some changes to my schedule. Don't be mean. At that point, I didn't feel like I was overreacting at all. I just wanted to protect our home. After a while, I began to notice that some things were starting to go missing from the house. When I asked, my wife said she had no idea, saying that maybe I had moved things around on my own. But I remembered perfectly well where and what I had put. And this disappearance did not suit me at all. Some years my uncle gave me some expensive coins and I kept them under glass in the study, which I locked with the key. Also, I had a few antique statuettes left from my grandmother, but I put them around the house like decorations. And this is exactly 2 of them are already missing. I wanted to write a report to the police about the disappearance, but I got the idea of catching the thief myself. After all, if it was Tiffany who decided to take them, I'd hate to have to send her to jail. I bought some security cameras and set them up in several rooms so they wouldn't be visible. If Tiffany was involved in this, she wasn't supposed to know. I put the recordings on my tablet and laptop. It was quiet for a few weeks. Very quiet, in fact. No one showed up at the house and things weren't missing anymore. I was beginning to think I was wasting my time talking to my wife about going missing. But then one day, I saw Craig come back into our house and strut around like he was at home. At first, there was nothing suspicious, but then I noticed that he and Tiffany weren't exactly acting friendly. He kept hugging her and trying to sit her on his lap. I began to feel a sense of anger building up inside me. Tiffany, who I had once sheltered, was now taking advantage of the situation and treating me treacherously. But as it turned out, that wasn't the only surprise from her. I wanted to call her and scandalize her when I saw them playing together. But my inner voice told me to keep watching. I saw them talking about CDs, the game, and the upcoming concert. Tiffany went to get drinks and Craig paced the house, and I saw him walk over to the fireplace where there were several expensive statues, one of which he had stashed in the inside pocket of his jacket. There wasn't much more interesting. They chatted and Craig hurried away, evidently so Tiffany wouldn't notice that he had already taken it from the house. In the evening, I arrived at their concert with the police, to whom I provided a tape of the theft. Craig was arrested in front of the whole audience. When they took him away, he was shouting that it was a setup and he would come back. He shouted to the audience to wait for him with more songs and performances and how much he loved them. The audience, to my surprise, thought it was part of the show and began applauding loudly, shouting words of encouragement and admiration at him. "How could you? What have you done?" Tiffany came up to me, accusing me of disrupting their performance. "Are you stupid? How could you not see that he was stealing things from us? Do you really think I just let that go? How are we going to perform without Craig? You don't think about me at all." She turned and walked away to her companions, who were discussing what had happened. I wanted to catch up with her and take her home, but she shouted at me to leave her alone. I realized that talking to her now was not going to end well. Tiffany began to change. It seemed to me that she was more into the group than she was into me. Time passed, but Tiffany didn't quit the band. On the contrary, she became their lead singer and their concerts continued. But the relationship between us began to weaken and we began to fight, sometimes over nothing. She became more and more distant from me. Soon I heard the news that Craig's lawyer got him released and he was back in the band. Their popularity only increased and there was no way Tiffany was going to leave the band. I tried to talk to her. I even offered to take her away for a couple of weeks. "You what? We have gigs. I can't miss them." "But Tiffany, you don't see anything but this band anymore. You don't even see me anymore. Do you even remember that you're married? How can you think that? There's something wrong with your head. Tiffany was getting hysterical, and some of the changes in her personality were starting to worry me. I remembered that I hadn't turned off the cameras in the house, though I hadn't used them in a while. Now I decided to look through the tapes of the last few days, hoping to see something that might explain my wife's behavior. I locked myself in my office and went through the speed camera footage for hours. For a very long time, I saw nothing suspicious, even though it was only recorded while driving, and it helped me to keep track of a few days. Sometime later, I got to the day she and I had a big fight. I could see myself from the outside and didn't recognize it. We were yelling at each other a lot then, and I even took a swing at her, but I didn't hit her. I hadn't been like that before. Maybe it was jealousy that made me like that. My reflection was interrupted by a video frame when I saw Tiffany run into the bedroom and lock herself in the bathroom. A few minutes later, she came out of there, rubbing her nose hard. I was alarmed by these movements of hers. I began to suspect that she had started using drugs. I gave up watching and went into the very same bathroom and started rummaging through all the cabinets and drawers, trying to find any evidence at all. But I couldn't find anything. Trying to reassure myself that it was just my worst guess, I went into the bedroom and rummaged through her things. Tiffany was at a gig this evening, and I had plenty of time to search. Finally, in the dresser in the far corner behind the laundry, I found a small box. When I opened it, I found several packs of condoms, 2 cards, 1 Valentine's card, and a bag of white powder. I sat down on the bed, holding the box in my hands. Realizing that my wife was cheating on me and addicted to drugs made me hate her, her band, and this Craig guy. I looked at my watch and realized that my wife should be back from her concert soon. I didn't have to wait long. When she arrived, I interrogated her by showing her my find. "How did you go through my things?" She started yelling back at me. "Your things? Have you forgotten that I helped you get settled when you had no place to go? I took you in then, and this is how you repay me? You're just a whore. How long have you been fucking Craig? Answer me." "It's none of your business. You don't know anything about the music business. Besides, you've become so tedious, how could anyone be interested in you?" I couldn't take it anymore and slapped her in the face. "You asshole." She came at me with her fists. But since I was still stronger, she didn't manage to hurt me. I pushed her and she hit the wall hard. When she realized she couldn't beat me, she ran out of the house. I didn't go after her. I didn't want to deal with a woman like that anymore. I sat down on the couch with my hands over my face, wondering what I should do next. If it wasn't for her cheating, I could have tried to somehow help her get rid of her addiction, but she had betrayed me completely and I couldn't forgive that. A few days later, I filed for divorce, leaving her with nothing. The day of the divorce, we had another big fight, and I wouldn't even let her take anything from the house, no valuables, just some of her clothes. She left, and I didn't care what happened to her next. But beyond that, I couldn't shake the urge to get even with Craig for getting into our lives and getting Tiffany hooked on drugs. I found out where they usually had their parties. I got changed and went there, trying to remain unrecognizable. At the joint I went to, everyone was already stoned, and hardly anyone there knew me. As one of the guests, I got in, and after a while, I managed to find Craig, too. He was in a dirty room, having fun with 2 girls. I didn't see Tiffany anywhere. "We need to talk," I told him. "What do you want?" He recognized me but remained calm. "No witnesses." Craig nodded at the maidens and they left. "So what do you want?" He got up off the bed and took a step toward me. "I'm here for an autograph," I said. I said and slapped him across the face. I didn't stop. I hit him a few more times. His drug intoxication was to my advantage at that point, and he quickly passed out. I was about to leave, but a table caught my eye where there was a syringe and a prepared drug. I filled a syringe full and rolled up Craig's sleeve and injected him with it. He started twitching and passed out. After wiping the syringe, I put it in Craig's hand and left. He asked not to be disturbed. I told the girls who were waiting outside the door. With a shrug of the shoulders, they went off to have some more fun, and I went home. The next day, I heard on the news that Craig had been found dead of a drug overdose. I felt better somehow, and I didn't even feel guilty about it. On the contrary, I was glad there was one less scumbag. A few months went by. I continued to run my business, but now I lived alone and I was in no hurry to start a relationship. I didn't look for Tiffany and I didn't even think about it. It was only once an acquaintance of mine informed me that she was living in a crack house and had changed a lot from drugs. The story is cool. I like that the woman got what she deserved and ended up on the bottom. Karma works. And now we have another story that proves it's better to take a closer look at your partner if you suspect cheating. I have always been attracted to the world of fishing. Ever since I was a child, when my grandfather took me fishing for the first time, I felt something special. He taught me how to choose the right equipment, distinguish between different types of fish, and the subtleties of catching. These lessons went deep into my soul, and I fell in love with fishing from the very first moment. At school, I spent my free time immersing myself in books about fishing and learning about different types of fish. I spent all my summer holidays by the lake, and every time it was a new adventure. I became so interested in fishing that I even dreamed of becoming a professional fisherman. However, as is usually the case in life, love came unexpectedly. I was 21 when I met Sarah. It happened on one of those rare occasions when I decided to take a break from fishing and spend time on a public beach. Sarah caught my attention right away. She was a luxurious red-haired girl with fiery eyes and a bright smile. She wore a loose summer dress, which gave the impression that she was simply light and carefree, like the wind playing with water. I walked up to her and couldn't help but say something stupid. "Hello, my name is Kevin, and you?" I said with a nervous smile. "Hi Kevin, I'm Sarah. How are you?" She replied with a slight smile. "Great, nice to meet you, Sarah. You probably have no end of the guys. You are very beautiful. I know it's probably very banal, but I just wanted to get acquainted. I'm sorry I couldn't resist and interrupted your holiday." "Kevin, nice to meet you. Believe me, if I didn't want to get acquainted, I wouldn't even respond to your question. I do not like arrogant guys who complicate everything with tricks in order to get to know each other. But you are not one of them," Sarah answered. We started talking, and I found out that Sarah also likes to spend time in nature. She told me about her adventures in the mountains and her travels in national parks. I was amazed by her passion for nature and realized that we have a lot in common. Sarah was also interested in my love of fishing. "Fishing? I've never tried it, but it sounds exciting," she said. "Maybe you could show me how it's done?" Sarah asked with a smile. "I'll be happy to show you everything. It's just that it's quite surprising. Usually girls don't like fishing. At least not among my friends," I answered. "Well, you came up to meet an unusual girl, and I don't really care about stereotypes about girls." My heart beat with joy. I suggested that she go fishing with me on the next day off. She agreed with a smile and offered to meet at dawn near the lake. The next day, we went on our first fishing adventure. Sarah was dressed in comfortable sportswear and a hat that gave her charm and some mystery. I taught her the basics of fishing and showed her how to choose the right gear. It all seemed so exciting. Sarah said when we sat on the shore and began to expect a bite. I never thought that fishing could be so calm and relaxing. Yes, fishing is not just about catching fish. It's about enjoying nature, feeling in harmony with the outside world, I answered. We spent the whole day at the lakeside, fishing and enjoying each other's company. Sarah learned to fish and even caught her first pike. I couldn't be happier to be able to share my passion with someone special. Since that day, fishing has become a common hobby for us. We spent the weekend on the lakes and away from the bustle of the city, enjoying nature and our mutual company. I realized that fishing brought us together and became another beautiful part of our mutual history. We had a great relationship. We seemed to be halves of one whole. I did not expect to find a good friend, a beautiful girl, and just such a close and dear soul. I just couldn't believe my luck. And it's been 18 years since we got married. We've had a very busy life. We often went out together to very beautiful places. Each time was special. And I connected my work with my favorite thing. I traded in fishing tackle. Now I already had several stores. I only sell high quality and expensive products. My gear has been tested under the most extreme conditions, so I knew that my customers would never be let down by this gear. Lately, something has begun to change in my relationship with Sarah. Sarah spent less and less time fishing with me. She spent more and more time away from home. She became secretive, answered irritably to questions about her studies, and disappeared for several days without explanation. I began to suspect Sarah of treason. I decided to follow her to find out what was really going on. I set up a hidden camera in our house and began to study its behavior while I went fishing alone, trying to figure out what was happening. But nothing strange happened on the camera. Sarah behaved as usual. She was engaged in the usual chores around the house. I have already begun to calm down. I began to think that this is just such a difficult period in the relationship. A struggle of emotions was still going on inside me, but I decided to calm them down with common sense. I hoped things would get better in the future. One day, when I returned from fishing earlier than usual, I heard the phone ring in the bedroom. Sarah was flustered and was talking on the phone to someone in an unhappy whisper. My heart began to beat faster and I quickly approached the door to hear what was being said. "I told you I don't have time for a meeting," Sarah whispered irritably. "Can't I just get some space?" These words hurt me. I was already sure that she was talking to her lover. My mind filled with dark thoughts of betrayal and the destruction of a relationship that seemed so strong. Determined to catch Sarah cheating, I grabbed my car keys and ran to my car to follow her. I followed her car at a safe distance, trying not to be seen. Sarah stopped in the parking lot of the restaurant, then she got out of the car and went inside the restaurant. I stopped nearby. I was sure she was dating another man. My heart was beating even faster and I decided to go inside and catch them on the spot. However, when I got inside the restaurant, an awkward discovery awaited me. Sarah was seated at a table with a group of friends, including her sister and parents. It turned out that Sarah had a family meeting about which she did not say a word to me. I felt waves of shame and embarrassment, realizing that I had made a mistake and was in an awkward situation. I couldn't resist the urge to apologize and explain myself. I approached Sarah, smiling shyly. "I'm sorry," I thought. I began to make excuses, but Sarah put her finger to his lips. "Kevin, I understand that you're worried, but you have to trust me," she said with understanding in her eyes. "But why didn't you warn me that you would be seeing your family?" I asked anxiously. "Yes, I forgot about it. You were supposed to be fishing early, and I didn't want to distract you. We still wouldn't stay too long. And you again invented something for yourself and came here with your paranoia. I'm not cheating on you, and I didn't intend to." Sarah spoke out with a little anger. I felt ashamed of my suspicion and lack of trust. I realized that I needed to talk openly with Sarah about my feelings and not hide and follow her. I hugged her and apologized for my actions. This episode taught us the importance of open and honest communication. I tried not to invent new terrible events for myself, and Sarah gradually became the same. She again got out with me on vacation, and I again began to feel peace inside. The story of my relationship with Sarah took an unexpected turn. Although we overcame difficulties in the past and found happiness in fishing, fate decided to test our love one more time. I suddenly found out about her betrayal. It happened one evening when I was returning home earlier from work. I opened the door and heard familiar voices coming from the bedroom. My heart sank when I heard Sarah's voice and an unfamiliar male voice. It hurt me even to think that Sarah could cheat on me. I cautiously approached the bedroom and quietly opened the door. My heart broke when I saw Sarah and her lover in an embrace. They did not notice my presence, and I watched this terrifying scene of mixed emotions, anger, betrayal, and a deep wound. "Sarah, baby, how long are we going to hide our relationship?" the guy said imposingly. "Steve, my husband is a rather rich man who provides for me, and you only talk about making money." "Sarah, I have a great future. I've already arranged a large supply of liquor. My shop works day and night making fake excise stamps. Soon we will be rich. I have already set up sales points. Here is proof of my beautiful future. There are a lot of fake documents in this briefcase that no one can distinguish from genuine ones. I have already thought through everything to the smallest detail." "And we'll see," Sarah replied. "I'm not your mattress husband who only goes fishing. I'm thinking about the future. And you don't even dare to doubt me. Now I will punish you for these doubts," shouted Steve and pulled Sarah to him, pulling off her clothes. "Fucking bastards." I knew it. I yelled as I burst into the room. "Kevin, I don't know what to say. I don't even know how to explain," Sarah said with concern in her voice. "You don't need to explain anything to me. I've seen and heard everything. You slept behind my back with some bastard and you constantly accuse me of being paranoid," I said angrily. "You bastard, you're a non-entity. That's why she's with me," Steve replied angrily. "Get it, Steve?" I shouted and threw a massive wooden chair at Steve, which shattered on impact with Steve. Bastard! Are you still going to tell me something? Better shut up before I kill you, I said to Steve, who was already lying on the floor. Kevin, calm down, please. Don't do stupid things, Sarah said with tears in her eyes. Shut your stinking mouth. I wanted to share the whole world with you. And you acted so meanly to me. I know what to do with you, I said. I kicked Steve in the head and he passed out. Kevin, what are you thinking? Sarah asked fearfully. I want to get rid of the garbage, Sarah. Everything is very simple. And now I advise you not to make me angry. Get in the trash bag, I said, bringing 2 large garbage bags into the room. Sarah screamed and struggled, but I still put her in a bag and threw these half-naked bastards into the trunk of my car. We went to the city dump. It stank terribly, but for those bastards, it was the most suitable environment. Knew that, bitches, we already arrived, I said, throwing these bastards from the trunk of the car. I'll destroy you, freak, shouted in hysterics Steve, shaking off the smelly dirt. I asked you to be quiet, you bastard. I'll deal with you, you don't even have to worry about it. I yelled and kicked the bastard's dirty mug again with my boot. Steve rolled straight into a puddle of some stinking goo. And you, creature, are no longer worthy of being my wife. You betrayed and blackened all the brightest that was between us. You just destroyed everything. So this is where our paths diverge. I shouted, took the wedding ring off my finger and threw it at the bitch. Then I got in the car and drove off, leaving those dirty bastards in the dump. Among my clients were very influential people with whom we also loved to spend time together. They helped me get Steve. I took back then a briefcase with forged documents. All the schemes of this bastard were exposed. There was plenty of evidence to put this loser behind bars. So I've secured a happy future for this bastard. And I divorced Sarah. I left this lying bitch without a penny. She tried to restore communication with me, but I flatly refused. I did not need a lying creature who lived with me only because of the money. I went on a tour of the most exotic places to experience all the delights of fishing. My life went on, only there were no deceitful creatures in my environment. Thanks for staying with us. Write your comments under this video. See you soon.